of all the lawyers who provided legal guidance to Mr. Imbut, the method used for selecting them, and the cost to taxpayer for their services. Mr. Tanku says the finance minister should provide a public explanation about his own actions in calling the Auditor General on her personal cell phone to try to coerce her into acting illegally. West Indies cricket team started their campaign in the ICC T20 World Cup on a winning note against Minnows, Papua New Guinea at Providence in Guyana yesterday, and Namibia defeated Oman in a super over following a low-scoring thriller at Kensington Oval in Barbados. USA defeated Canada in the tournament's opening match in Dallas on Saturday night. In international news, Claudia Sheinbaum has been elected as Mexico's first woman president in an historic landslide win. Mexico's official electoral authority said preliminary results showed the 61-year-old former mayor of Mexico City winning between 58 and 60% of the vote in yesterday's election. That gives her a lead of about 30% points over her main rival. Ms. Sheinbaum will replace her mentor, outgoing President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador on October 1st. But that's it to news on the hour on WESN. I am Sira Ali. Thank you for watching.
WESN.
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and welcome back to Breakthrough. What's going on?
Well, I'm letting you intro.
Is that the Speak No Evil?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, no problem. Welcome. Okay, let me do my breakthrough. Let me do my intro. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome to Breakthrough. My name is Mark Anthony Peter, and I'm joined, as per usual, by my co-host, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Mark.
Okay. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. You know, life keeps hitting people for six,
Right.
but you know, the show must go on.
All the time. And I know it's been a pretty interesting news week the past week. So at least we get to take a little break and talk about some good arts and culture.
Yeah, I'll just a little bit. I mean, there's some interesting arts and culture news, but
let's
leave
that alone.
Mm-hmm.
We leave that alone. Let social media do what social media does. And joining us this morning is Assistant Professor at UTT for the Academy of Performing Arts, Dr. Leah Brown. Good morning.
Hi, morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
yes.
I'm happy to be here.
Great. So, and keep in mind, I know you like to mess up names. Dr. Brown, okay? Okay. Thank you very much.
I was talking about someone who had a particularly challenging name. In this case, the risk is not messing up the name. The risk is remembering because I'm bad with
Me
names.
too.
But there you go. See?
Me too.
Kindred spirit. You understand?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay.
Stop being so judgmental, Mark.
I will try my best not to. All right. So the discussion of today, we're going to talk about around the topics of like internships, volunteering, and succession planning. Right. That last one I really want to get into. But first, so some people would have, some students especially, they would have just graduated or they're about to graduate. Some are entering final year for their university qualifications, and they want to figure out what the next step is, right? Now, some might argue that the whole idea of experience and exposure is kind of overdone, so that clients or people hiring could get out of paying artists, right? That's a whole thing. But I do think that there is some merit to it of getting involved in organizations where you can actually get the experience, put your foot in the thing a little bit. So tell us, like, what are your views and how important do you think getting involved in those situations are?
Well, from the perspective of the student, the prospective employee, internships are very important. When you study in a university or at college or any other kind of institution, you're learning basic skills, basic knowledge that you don't necessarily get a chance to apply in the real world. So very often, if you do not go through an experience like an internship, when you do get into the real world, a lot of the real world experiences come as a shock. You're not used to dealing with them. So going on an internship, even before you leave college, I think is an important step for the student. One of the first things they have to decide, though, is what exactly they want to do. Because believe it or not, even though a student, for example, is studying music, quote unquote, there are so many different fields. And sometimes fields that they've not even thought about, because they see themselves as a performer. But they may make excellent administrators, or they see themselves as somebody being backstage, and lo and behold, you put them on a stage and they're brilliant.
Yes.
So one of the first things we explore at the academy, where I'm in charge of the internship course, for example, is trying to decide exactly what is for you. What do you think makes you, are you a teacher? Are you a performer? Are you an administrator? What are the things? And we do some games and play some, to try and make that decision. And eventually, some people are surprised by what they get. I never thought of myself as this or that. And then, of course, you have to look for the opportunity to be what you think you should be doing. And I help them in that regard because I have contacts, in various. So, and once they get there, that's a whole other, learning how to interact with a boss. Another co-worker, learning how to work collaboratively, even though you get that experience in school. Outside is a little different, especially the idea of competition among employees and that kind of thing. Learning how to be professional, turning up on time, putting your best foot forward, that kind of thing.
And of course, if it's an internship, I assume, it'll be a lot of a easier transition. There will be a little bit of leeway that you wouldn't get if you go straight from, I have a degree and now I am full professional job.
Yes.
And to me, it doesn't seem to be all too indifferent to what should be for other fields. Even if you have a business degree and you have a business internship, I think to some extent, somewhere along the lines, and I do wonder in North America, especially if they kind of forgot, well, you have these entry-level things. Yes, it's a bit of a joke now. You can't pay me in exposure. I can't eat exposure. But when you're a student, when you're a teenager, or you're in your early 20s, and ideally, you would not be in a situation where you have to literally figure out life because you're completely on your own at 20, 21. You will have a little bit of leeway, I would hope. It's good to have, there will be more opportunities available, right? If it is something where employers could be like, well, yes, you could be an intern, you'll get a stipend, we won't necessarily demand everything of you, we wouldn't need, because now a lot of entry-level things, we need experience. It's like, well, how do I get the entry level if I don't have experience? I need something to give me the experience. So I don't think it's too dissimilar to the business world. Would you agree with that?
No, of course it's not dissimilar. In fact, we tend to want to put our internships in the real business world, to give them, and a lot of employers are grateful to get people who are competent and willing and eager and young to come and work for them. Now, our internships are not paid internships. So it's really like a volunteer position. You get a grade, but you don't get you don't get paid necessarily for doing it. So the employers are very grateful, and our students, as you say, are not in a place where they need to necessarily have a job, but they want to get the real world experience before they get into a place where they have to have it.
Because in arts and culture, I mean, like any other industry, it's not like you have free spaces to just go around where you could give someone a salary.
No.
Yeah. So to get the extra spots, you have to kind of, give up a little, because to get enough students out there, maybe you could get a paid internship for one.
Yes. but it's hard to get, it's difficult to get paid internships for everybody, you know. And I think the idea of volunteerism and working for your community, because the wording in our internship has to do a lot with community and what we do for our community. And our community may be a school, our community may be a business organization, or even a volunteer organization. So it is about giving back to the community, even though you're not necessarily working for them, you know, but you get a chance to interact with those in your community.
Is there something, and I guess, I don't know if you want to now to transition to that part of the conversation, volunteerism, because I've mentioned this before, I find that we don't do a good job in TNT, I can't speak for anywhere else, about building up our communities, whether it's art, whether it's some sort of hobby, whether it's some sort of activity, whether it's a sports league. We don't really necessarily do a good job of building up that organic support base of whatever it is so that it could grow. And I do wonder, is there any sort of benefit? Well, you're kind of learning how to work for the sake of working and understand and building something without thinking about the monetary compensation. So now maybe as you become a professional, not everything is about my bottom line,
yes,
you know, but rather if we all grow together, we could increase the size of the pie.
Yes, it's about giving back to the community. And there's a lot going on at the community level, believe it or not. What we don't have is a very organized view of it, or a very organized, you know, collaboration of all of the various entities that work in the community. But there's a lot going on in the communities. So it's not even difficult to find, you know, internships in the community.
So but it's just a matter of like immediate visibility.
Yes.
For some.
Yeah.
Because I remember there was a student's parents of mine. They were telling me, you know, they don't see this type of music being performed, and I'm like, check the Queen's Hall schedule, like follow these different community. Follow these different community members. What would you say? And I know this is I was speaking to a friend about this who is currently doing his he's currently enrolled in UE and he's pursuing music, and he's not he's a little bit older. He's in his mid-20s, and he's been very much in the corporate world, right? So now he's like completely switching gears a little bit.
Wow.
And at some point, you know, you have to. I did have that I've had this hard conversation with people. At some point, there is going to be a hard decision that has to be made. At some point along the way, yes, this corporate job is going to help pay these fees, because these fees be feeing people, right? It's not easy, but what would you say to somebody who's in a position like that, where they're in that uncomfortable space, where they want the security of the corporate job, but the fulfillment of what they're pursuing?
Yes, I've had a few of my students like that who left the corporate world because they loved music so much, and I think for everybody, it's different. You have to know how important it is for you to fulfill your dream, you know, to live your dream. And for some people, it's very important for their mental health.
Yeah.
You know, and the corporate world is just not for them. But then there are times, for example, if you have a family, where, you know, the bottom line becomes more important, and we have to put it off. And that happened to me, as a matter of fact. I put off my education for a little bit, you know, to get married and have kids, and then I went back. You know, so for some people, it's you have to choose because you have to choose. Yeah. But if you are allowed to, if you know you have the chance to, I would always say follow your heart first. Follow your heart.
But then now I've seen this in the arts especially. It's almost as though it's very easy to think, well, if you get a job, I don't get a job. There's a competition.
Yeah.
Right? And we see this around the world in the various entertainment industries. Like, is that an issue here, would you say? Has there been any attempts to try to get people to understand, well, we need an industry first for people to be cutthroat over it. We don't really have some of these things really built up yet.
Yes. Because there are few places at the top, a few places at the places that are most visible, that are most lucrative. You know, there are not very many of those. Yes. And it therefore comes down to doing what fulfills you. You know, recognizing that, okay, I will never be rich from this, I will never be famous from this, but I will be happy.
Right.
It's making that kind of decision ultimately. And getting, and I always tell mine, if you know that you love something, you have to work towards acquiring the skill to do it to the best of your ability, recognizing that it takes hard work to get where you want to go. That's something that a lot of young people these days do not recognize, that it takes a certain level of hard work.
Especially in
to
arts, right?
In the arts, especially, I could sing, or I could rap, or whatever. They don't recognize that it takes more than just wanting to do it, that it takes hard work and sacrifice to acquire the necessary skill to even try to get to the top.
Now, something that I've noticed, and it's a point that you made earlier about you never know what you are into unless you just try everything, right? And when you're in the arts, I think we can all agree that, especially in the music, it's a transferable skill, right? So whether it's teaching, performing, whether it's directing, whether it's backstage stuff. Something that I've noticed, and I've not done any extensive research, but it's just something that I've noticed here and there. I think solo singers, I've seen that they have, or solo instrumentalists, have the hardest time branching out of just because all they know is just that instrument, or especially for singers, because some of them, they don't really want to be recording artists. They just want to be like stable, gigging singers, they perform, but they don't really, the fame and the public thing is not really for them. Because they feel like maybe they don't have the skills to teach, or maybe they feel like they don't have the skills to direct or innovate or produce or create something. Have you noticed that, and what do you usually say in situations like that?
Well, for most people, as I said, most people are not going to get to the stage of being rich or famous. So you have to decide what your little niche is. You have to learn how to build that little niche, that little community, and you see, as you talk about soloists, that's why we encourage all musicians, for example, to be in a band, to be in an orchestra, to be in choir, so that you learn about how to collaborate and create that community.
All of us,
Yes, so that idea of learning how to collaborate and live and work together in peace without backbiting, and that is very, very important in this world. So that we don't end up feuding and all of these other things.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting tired of the backbiting and the feuding.
Because we're running out of time, I do want to get to this point, because I feel this is again where the business world and the music and arts and entertainment world are very much in parallel with regards to succession planning, because I know of 2 instances where one in business, or maybe more than one in business, and one in the arts, where not really well done, right? Because what tends to happen is a charismatic, brilliant person builds something. This is just the story, right? And this is repeated in business. They build something, but they didn't necessarily go through school, so they didn't learn about the mistakes other people's made. They only learned through their own experiences. And their own experiences did not include succession planning, because it only comes towards the end when maybe you're thinking, oh gosh, I might need to give this up next year, and no one is in position because I never thought of this before. Is that an issue in TNT? And maybe that's why things don't really build, because somebody drags it to a point to the mountaintop, but then they're not ready for somebody else to pass the baton to keep the journey going.
Yes, that happens. That does happen in many organizations in Trinidad, and maybe globally as well. But certainly, I know about Trinidad, and it is very important that as a leader, you begin to search very early for those who can take over when you are not available. And tomorrow, it might be 5 years from now, it might be 10 years from now. But seeking out those who have the capacity, who have the skill, and being willing to mentor them and teach them. And they themselves must also be willing to learn, in the areas that they need, to be coached and mentored in. So seeking those who are young, not necessarily even younger, but who are less experienced than you are, to bring them into the fold, to work with them. And I know I personally am one like that. I'm very, very, very serious about mentoring and helping to build legacy Because today or tomorrow I may not be here, and I don't want everything to fall down after.
That's an interesting point, because you said do it as early as possible. Some people wait until it's almost too late.
No, yes.
Or to the point of, okay, I think I need to start looking. But it's like you should have done that, started that process from
early.
Yeah.
But then also, at some point, once they're taught, you've given them all you could give them, and it's actually the time to pass the baton, right? Like at some point, because I've seen this especially in business now, right? And more than one example. Well, if they're supposed to run the thing, it's now their thing to run. It's now their vision. It's now their personality. They have to do what they have to kind of. You don't want to lose the things that make you successful, but times will change, trends will change, and they are different, so it can't be exactly the same.
No, it wasn't. And I am one of those who don't believe, for example, in aging out people. For example, if you are giving up leadership and you are introducing new leadership, you should still be there.
Right.
You should still be there to look over things, even as they assume more and more responsibilities. It should not be something that is sudden. Today you're it and tomorrow you're not, you know. Let them take over responsibilities slowly so that eventually, you know, you could go on and retire. But it must not be a sudden thing. That's why I say you must start it as early as possible. Okay. It's like teaching a child. You know, all of a sudden tell them, here, go and wash the clothes. You may let them look at you do it first, and then give them a little thing to wash, and eventually they can do it on their own.
And I'm not gonna lie, with washing clothes, that literally was what it was. It wasn't even a here, go wash your clothes. It was, listen, I'm not bringing my clothes back from Tobago for you to wash them. I'm washing my clothes in Tobago. I'm not bringing them every week. That is
It's the same thing.
I throw it out too much.
Leave that shade.
But I mean, it's interesting. That example is like, well, actually, you know, in that particular case, you know, it was all at once.
But my final question on this, because you spoke about the leaders. What about people who are? I don't mean the frontish people. I'm talking about the people who are sort of meek and they're a little bit humble, but they're not sure if they want to take up leadership roles, not in any particular space, but they see themselves.
Would it especially for people who others might want to lead, but they themselves are too humble to put themselves
possibly that as well. I can include that. What sort of qualities they should have, or what should their perspective be going into certain things or achieving that?
To me, as long as you are, there are a couple of things that are essential to me. A willingness to learn, first, you know, a willingness to accept tutoring and mentoring. Loyalty to the organization that you are with, because you don't want to be teaching somebody and then they take it, all our knowledge and take it, send it away, you know. So there are certain basic tenets. Even if you are shy and reticent, you know, every leader is different. Every leader has a different kind of personality. That doesn't mean, because you're shy doesn't mean that you will not make an excellent leader, you know. You will eventually learn how to come out of your shell. So that should not keep you back. From being, and I, as looking for a leader, will not make somebody shyness make me say, well, you know, he's not good enough for that. You know, I will try and bring him out, especially if I see that he has, you know, very good skills in other things. So
you're looking beyond what the surface is presenting.
Yes, definitely.
The possible potential in it.
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
That's interesting.
Well, I'm afraid I'm going to have to say that we are out of time.
No. It's going so well.
I know. We need more time.
We do.
Hint,
we
hint.
need more time.
Wink, wink.
Hint. Thank you very much.
With that said,
Dr. Leah Brown, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I did.
Great, thank you.
Speaking to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Trinidad and Tobago, this is Breakthrough on WESN. We will be right back.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Hello there and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. Before we even start this repatriation and reintegration process, we've already failed, or are we doomed to fail?
You've got to invest in the institutions that you've established to carry out those sorts of core functions.
We now get into the regional updates to give you an understanding of what's happening across our neighboring islands.
We have available a number of films that are worth showing.
So it was day one when the French Revolution started to develop the concept of universal human rights.
What happened this time is unprecedented. It's one of the largest terrorist attacks in history.
Let's welcome Carl to the program. Carl is over there next to Seth. Hello, Carl.
Silky anteater or pygmy anteater, and we have 2 of the 3 species of anteaters right here.
And welcome back, Trinidad and Tobago, to Breakthrough. We just wrapped up our lovely discussion with Dr. Leah Brown, and I hope everyone really took in the wisdom that she imparted, especially to all of you students who are just about to graduate or enter in final year. Think about what's next for you, all right, because the industry is not easy. But thankfully, what we're going on to next, we were able to just pay a little visit to the voice teacher, Natalia Dupwell, and she will be sort of coaching through, all right, coaching to a vocal student, one of my vocal students, actually. The irony is my vocal teacher teaching one of my vocal students. And she's,
That makes sense.
Yes, and she's sort of coaching through the song, and I think it's very good. It's going to be very valuable. So let's take a look at what that is.
So what I want you to just envision is I want you to envision not a piano, but a whole orchestra.
Aha.
And no microphones.
Oh,
Okay.
that's not fun.
So when we have different songs from different eras and songs from different musical genres, you want to always keep in mind the situation that will accompany that particular song. So this is one of the reasons why there's different vocal technique for pop music, musical theatre, reggae, pretty much everything that came after amplification has a very different vocal technique to things that come from before amplification. Even calypso changed. Even calypso vocal technique changed after the introduction of microphones. So we want to keep in mind, always think orchestra, hall, no microphone.
Projection.
Right. And how do we project? I want to just keep in mind it doesn't take a big sound, it doesn't take a big instrument to make a big sound. Okay? What we want to just be aware of is where we are making sound from. A lot of times we think through the voice.
Yeah.
But our instrument's hair. So we have to make sure that we have a nice, strong, warm vibration hair. Okay?
Okay.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go, let's think. Let's go, we're going to do, Sio. We're going to go, Sio, 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 Sio. Good. Let's do a low side. Oh. Sio. Good. No shouting. No shouting. Oh. This is going to be very, very head voice because this is going high. Okay? So we don't want, it's not that we don't want chest voice muscle, but we don't need it there. Sio. Yeah, so when you go, yes, because this is where your instrument is, right? And so if you don't add too much chest voice muscle, you don't get stuck in the basement. You know where you're going. You're going high with this song. So we don't want to get stuck in the basement. But we also want to make sure that we're not making our throat tight because we're going into head voice, right? So as you sing the song, I want you to just imagine that you're just sort of gently chewing through all of the syllables, okay? Oh, as if the jaw is just falling with gravity back. Can you do that? Just okay, try it. Just from the beginning. Good. Let's try that again, but this time we're going to add some hissing first. We're going to go so, yes. So you see, it requires a little bit more compression from the body, and it also requires a lot more vibration in the body in order to get over that orchestra, right? And keep in mind, it may say pianissimo, it might say PP, it might say triple P. Once it's an orchestra and no microphone, it's all relative.
Yeah.
Okay?
Very soft
So this does
exist.
not, yeah, so this does not mean start to shout. It means we want to, instead of thinking of a volume, we want to think of a feeling. So we want to think, okay, so this song, she is crying to her daddy, please let me marry this boy that I like. She is not wailing and screaming and throwing a tantrum. She's decided to go in with some soft diplomacy. That's not soft, but it's pianissimo, right? So we want to think more in terms of mood, feeling, than just volume. Okay? So soft for Billie Eilish is not soft for Puccini. Okay?
Okay.
All right, so let's try it just from the beginning again. actually have Andre. We have a bit of an expansive. I know that there's a pianissimo in the score, in the accompaniment, right? But we want to think a big open. We want to think, ooh, big open. So lots of space in the back of the throat, right? Try just open the hands up and go. Yes, there we go. Right, so you feel the space. Yeah, open the space. Oh. Oh.
Oh.
Yeah, you feel that openness? Yeah. That's what we want there, right? So let's just go from Sì, ci voglio andare.
Sì, ci voglio
You see, feel the difference?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Nice. Good job.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
You ain't ever gonna fly. Why you wanna fly, blackbird? You ain't ever gonna fly. No place big enough for holding. All the tears you're gonna cry. Cause your mama's name was lonely, and your daddy's name was pain. And they call you little sorrow, cause you'll never love again. So why you wanna fly, blackbird? You ain't ever gonna gonna fly, blackbird. You ain't ever gonna fly.
Welcome back, Trinidad and Tobago, to Breakthrough again. My name is Mark Anthony Peter, still joined by my co-host, Mr. Sean Michael Small. I don't know why he's still here.
I don't know either.
Okay, great. Now that we're on the same page.
Look at how much sleep I'm missing just for this show, Mark.
That is very true.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
There you go.
I appreciate
there
you.
There you go.
But just now what we had was a little clip of a dancer, Nkosi Waldron, and he's joined in studio with us this morning. The spotlight is on him. Good morning, Nkosi.
Good morning, man.
How are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm good. So we just saw that dance, that solo dance that you did there, and we have another clip for y'all. Don't go away. But that was dancing to Nina Simone's song Blackbird, I believe it was, right?
Yeah.
So is that the particular type of music that you want to dance to, or that you are more inclined to do work with?
Not necessarily. I like to explore different genres. But as I said, jazz is life, right? But I more gravitate towards folk or a fusion. So it's most time I'll do jazz fused with folk, or probably something fused with contemporary.
Okay, great. And you're still doing dance at UTT, or you've graduated?
I'm going into my final year.
You're going in, great, the home stretch.
Home stretch.
So tell us about that journey that has been like. So what made you decide to pursue this on an academic level?
I was advised to.
Okay.
I was the competition kid in secondary school when it came to spoken word and storytelling.
Oh, okay.
And I just took a dance class, and the person that was carrying on the dance class told me, don't stop dancing, continue. And for fifth form exams, we had to use a cultural form, and I used dance. Sixth form exams, we had to use an art form and a cultural form. I used dance as well. And I was like, you know, I really dig in this.
Okay.
And I wanted to do musical theater.
Oh, okay.
And
that real footwork.
Yeah,
that's a lot of footwork. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So because of that, I was like, you know what can I do to get as much training as I can with the resources that are available to me?
Okay.
And I decided to apply for the Academy for Performing Arts.
And you got through.
Yeah.
And now you're entering into your final year.
Hallelujah.
Well, what is that? What's going through internally in your mind now that you're entering final year?
Just make it.
I think we've all kind of been there on some levels, like just to finish.
You said you want to do musical theater, so do you also do vocal training, singing on the side, or are you just kind of sticking to dance right now?
I do sing, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
No, I just, all right. Is it that you thought, well, I'll focus dance first because that's where my strength is?
Well, the degree that I'm doing is not necessarily a dance degree. It's a multidisciplinary degree. So I'm exposed to not just dance, I'm exposed to technical theater, I'm exposed to acting, and there are music courses as well. Dr. Leah Brown, I did singing for actors with her. I also had ensemble with Dr. Roger J. Henry. Yeah, those are the two music courses that I've had with regards to voice thus far.
Okay. And so, in terms of because we were talking with Dr. Brown, we were talking about, the future, what is in the future, what do those graduates and those final year students have to start thinking about for the future? Where, you said musical theater, but are there any specific realms that you want to go into, any specific organizations you want to get into, or what's going to be, aside from making it, just make it to the end, what do you think is going to be the next step, per se, for you?
Well, for me, I believe that I'm somewhat still green. So for me, I would look for more training, but not focusing on dance.
Okay.
I would more focus on acting and voice.
Okay.
Because in order to be a musical theater artist, you can't just say, well, I'm strong in dance, but You could get a 50 in acting or you could get a 50 in singing. Your abilities must be at equal levels.
All rounded.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of ties into the discussion we were having with Dr. Brown when she said, you know, try everything and try as best to be great as you can be at everything.
Well, so to Mark's question now, the generic, I just want to make it, that's not what we want, but rather, where do you see your career? Because I guess that's one of the things, the realities of any profession is you need to kind of have some sort of plan with some sort of endpoint. It doesn't have to be etched in stone. It doesn't have to be like specifically detailed out perfect to the last decimal point. But like, do you see yourself either trying to work locally, regionally, to go abroad, cruise ships, Broadway, London? Like, what would be, I guess, maybe a hope? And like, what do you think is your realistic expectations to get there?
So my, not end goal, but one of my major goals is Broadway and West End. To get there, I kind of have a cheat. So what I decided to do is to go to schools that have the internship program at the end of your degree. So what a school in the UK do, Hamilton Theatre Arts, what they do is that in your final year, they have a showcase, and at the end of the showcase, they hook you up with different agencies, and the agencies push you towards auditions. Now, there are a lot of auditions that some persons, if you're not with an agency, you're not able to go unless it's an open audition. That's kind of not what we're going to do. We want to be given a ticket to go into the door. So I'm more looking towards going to schools that, because I want to do my master's.
Right.
So we're looking towards going to schools that can link you with an agency.
Okay. And so one thing that I want to ask, now that you're entering into your final year, you kind of have a broad perspective of, and you can sort of see where you started when you first entered into the BFA, the Bachelor of Finance, now entering into your final year. If there was a student who was just entering, or is thinking about entering, what's one thing or a few things that you would tell them to keep in mind, to always make sure that you're doing certain things right, or watch out? What's some advice you would give to them?
Make the most of your experience there.
Okay.
Right? Don't limit yourself, or don't say, well, I'm a dancer, I come to dance, and because you have a history course or because you have an acting course, you're not going to apply yourself in it. I've learned so much during my time at the APA, and because of it, I view dance differently, I view music differently, because a dancer would only see things from a dance point of view, but when you have a deeper knowledge on music, you understand time signatures, you understand syncopation and all of that, you could play with different steps, you could play with putting stuff on different rhythms, or focusing on, let me say, I want to focus on the voice rather than the music itself, or I want to focus on just riding the bass of the music than anything else. So it gives you a different interpretation of what you want to do, right? So make the most of your experience, don't limit yourself, and hand in your assignments on time.
Because you said, well, that's not unique to art students, right? That's not unique to art students.
No, I feel like as art students, we tend to procrastinate a bit too much.
That's not, well, maybe that's one, maybe I can say communication students have a similar, slight creative similarities and a bit of procrastination at times too.
I'm going to stay quiet on this.
But with that said, because you said you did spoken word, I think, in school, right?
Yes.
So of course now that goes with regards to, well, I guess lyrics or the words, right? And the interpretation of the art. I might have seen maybe some dancers, they might not really understand all of the things that you're talking about there. Do you, when you're looking at a piece now, do you kind of like look at all of the different ways that you could do it, and do you have fun with, ooh, I could do this instead of that? Definitely. You know? And do you try to change it up, or do you have a preferred style, you know, that you like, no, but this is me and how I express?
I'm always going with an open mind. And when I So I will binge watch dance videos for fun, right?
Right.
So what I do is I say, okay, I try to spot similarities in certain genres, or sometimes I would say, okay, this technique is really nice. If I'm to apply it to, let's say, a folk piece, how would I interpret it differently? Or sometimes what I do is I wouldn't watch the dance pieces with the music. I'd watch it in silence just to dissect it and
like
see the beauty of the moves.
Itself, right?
Yeah.
The mechanics of what they're doing.
That's interesting. I never would think of that.
It's amazing how dance could speak for itself without music.
Because I'll say this, I've watched some dance videos before, and there have been some people who I wanted to be fans of, but it was almost like, are you dancing just to the beat, but it's not really in line with the song, or like I don't even know exactly what you're trying to portray. But with that said, choreography, is that also like something that, because I assume, okay, to some extent you are looking into choreography, but is that also something that you like frequently exercise, not just for yourself, but for others?
Yes and no. What I do, I would have choreo that I would like to put down on persons. I have friends that are dancers, so sometimes we try it out, but it doesn't reach anywhere apart from that, because me self-doubting and all of that, we wouldn't record it to put it anywhere. But just to know that, okay, I created this and it worked.
Yeah, but do you record it though? When you all put it together?
Sometimes just like short clips and stuff, or just rest on the phone while they're teaching it and everything.
Because, I mean, you know, there are a lot of dance videos, they don't even record the whole song. They do like verse, maybe chorus, maybe not even chorus, maybe not even verse. And it goes on YouTube, and you know, it'll get some circulation depending on what it is. And I guess, you know, we need more of, you know, we thing out there, you know, just say it.
So I would actually, just as final word on it, I would actually encourage you. I want to see those videos. I want to see in the description of the YouTube video, Nkosi Waldron. Okay. Right? Nice.
And they start off humble. They don't start off with no big production value and backdrop, you know. And in fact, sometimes if you start off the gates with all the big production value, people might look at you funny, like, how you look like a manufacturing plant, you know? Yeah, look authentic. Huh? Okay, so you don't have to scale the mountain in one go.
Correct, is right. Nkosi, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. It was a pleasure. I hope you had a fun interview.
See, it wasn't so bad.
Yeah, it was. Trinidad and Tobago, my name is Mark Anthony Peter. This is Sean Michael Small to my right. And we're just going to introduce a very quick clip of Nkosi Waldron and a colleague of his, Jewel Lee, giving us a duet dance as we head out. Remember to stay safe, stay supportive of the arts. Thank you for joining us. Have a good day.
WESN.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sira Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Gang attack in Port of Spain leaves 4 dead and 4 injured. Lawyer for arrested Canadian YouTuber claims their lives are in danger. Opposition MP demands details of legal advice provided to Finance Minister in Auditor General report imbroglio. West Indies in winning start to T20 World Cup campaign. Mexico elects its first female president. Now for the details. 4 persons were killed and 4 others injured following a shooting rampage by gunmen in Port of Spain last evening. The brazen attack started in Gonzales, Belmont, where 3 persons were shot dead at around 7:55 p.m. It continued on the compound of the Port of Spain General Hospital, where one of the injured persons succumbed when the gunman riddled him with more bullets while he was being carted into the accident and emergency department. The gunmen were dressed in tactical kits resembling those worn by members of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. 3 of the deceased persons were identified as Jonathan Arjun, Jaden Reyes, and Kevin King, also known as Kevin Grimes. Police Commissioner Earl Haywood Christopher and National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines visited the scene at the Port of Spain General Hospital, where a heavy police presence was posted following the gun attack, which left many hospital staff shaken. Attorney at law Kristen G. Williams is seeking an urgent audience with President Christine Kangaloo, claiming his life and that of his client Christopher Hughes are under threat. Mr. Williams says police visited his offices after he accepted the case to represent Canadian YouTube vlogger Hughes, popularly known as Chris Must List. He claims his client was not afforded due process when he was arrested and subsequently charged with sedition last week. Mr. Williams also says police have so far failed to commence investigations into his client's claim that his life was threatened by 2 political figures. Hughes, who had posted YouTube videos of recent interviews with various gang members, is expected to appear in court today. Opposition MP Dave Tanku is demanding that Minister of Finance Colum Imbert provide the legal advice he got when he refused to lead the Auditor General's report in Parliament on April 26th. And which has guided his subsequent actions, including establishment of an investigations committee. Speaking at a media conference yesterday, Mr. Tanku also demanded the names of all the lawyers who provided legal guidance to Mr. Imbert, the method used for selecting them, and the cost to taxpayer for their services. Mr. Tanku says the finance minister should provide a public explanation about his own actions in calling the Auditor General on her personal cell phone to try to coerce her into acting illegally. West Indies cricket team started their campaign in the ICC T20 World Cup on a winning note against Minnows, Papua New Guinea at Providence in Guyana yesterday, and Namibia defeated Oman in a super over following a low-scoring thriller at Kensington Oval in Barbados. USA defeated Canada in the tournament's opening match in Dallas on Saturday night. In international news, Claudia Sheinbaum has been elected as Mexico's first woman president in an historic landslide win. Mexico's official electoral authority said preliminary results showed the 61-year-old former mayor of Mexico City winning between 58 and 60% of the vote in yesterday's election. That gives her a lead of about 30% points over her main rival. Ms. Sheinbaum will replace her mentor, outgoing President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, on October 1st. But that's it to News on the Hour on WESN. I am Sira Ali. Thank you for watching.
WESN.
Hello, good morning, and welcome. I'm your host of Psych, Sule A. Joseph, a counseling psychologist by profession. And of course, this is my favorite program, and I'm hoping yours. It's called Psyched. This morning, I know we usually talk about having exciting programs and so on this show, but this is a particular one of interest, and it's an interest to me, and I'm certain it will be some interest to you all as well. Today, we talk men's mental health. I'm not sure if that exists in Trinidad, but we're going to have a conversation about it with an extremely qualified person. And when I say extremely qualified, I'm usually happy to have guests here, but I'm excited about this one. But first, before we get into all of that, my favorite segment, Psyched to Know.
Psyched to Know, brought to you by Sule Joseph and Associates.
While 5 in 8 women tend to report experiencing symptoms of mental health, only 1 in 8 men do.
Is out, all day is in. WESN News on the hour.
This guest has been an unwitting mentor to me. I'm not sure that he knows about it, but he's been an unwitting mentor. Somebody who's exceedingly successful within the field of psychology and psychiatry. I would even argue the pinnacle of the field in Trinidad and Tobago. I know him as Prof. affectionately, Professor Hutchinson, head of psychiatry of UE campus.
Yes.
So UE St. Augustine. All the other million portfolios and hats that you wear, Prof. Welcome to Psyched. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
We're talking men's mental health. We're only talking about crazy men. Right? So before we get into men's mental health, what is mental health? When we say mental health, what are we talking about?
Yeah, well, it's a simple but complex question at the same time. I think the idea of mental health is one that you have to approach from different perspectives. I think the first is the state of one's mind, and if that state generally is one that engenders a sense of well-being, a sense of satisfaction with life, I think that would constitute one dimension of mental health. The other dimensions would include things like the ability to function in the various roles that you occupy in life, and to function optimally, at least some, if not most of the time. And I think finally, to be able to integrate those two things into being a positively contributing member of, whichever community you happen to be part of. Now, that positive contribution does not necessarily have to be active, but in terms of being a good citizen, being supportive in terms of your family and the commitments that you hold, and honoring the precepts that determine the life that you live in the society. I think those, if you combine those with a state of well-being and the ability to function optimally, I think that would be a kind of overarching definition of mental health.
Essentially, you're saying it's an overarching, it's a multi-pronged thing.
Correct.
Right? It's a state of being, a thought patterns and so on, ability to function optimally within your various networks and so on. And finally, you're just saying it must be across all functioning.
Yes, and I think, and this is the part that is sometimes ignored. I think there must be a social responsibility, which could be jigged or rejigged into meaning and purpose, and a sense of that the direction of your life is one that not only is consistent with the ideals that you have and that have been ingrained in you as you grew up, but that are also consistent with the ideals of the society that you live in.
So then, let's get to the brass tacks. What the Francis Fashion and Shoe Locker wrong with these men, right? Why? What's wrong with these men that they're not functioning optimally across all of these various expectations of society? Are we all crazy men in Trinidad?
Well, I mean, I think, we have to be careful about being too general, too generalized. I mean, I think men have been struggling. I remember Errol Miller, who's a sociologist in Jamaica, wrote a book, this would have been in the early 90s, called Men at Risk. And in that book, he talked about what he saw as a kind of gathering storm of risks that men face, one of which was their marginalization with the wave of feminism that had begun in the 70s in the West, and of course had progressed across to the Caribbean subsequently. And even when people talk about gender, it is only latterly that people have considered males in that discussion.
Yes.
And then more controversially, another sociologist, Yuri Bronfenbrenner, who talked about the ecological model or theory of society, he argued that once mothers went out to work, as part of that wave of feminism, the
70s?
Yeah, men were the ones, or boys were the ones who suffered more. And not that mothers shouldn't work, but that I think the influence on boys' development became was more compromised.
I would have received a call from a potential client, but somebody reached out to me, and they conferenced a call with a gentleman, a grown man, on the other end of the phone, sobbing bitterly, unable to deal with the stresses in his life at that point, contemplating the value of his own life, and contemplating taking very drastic actions, not just against himself, but against persons who he felt put him into a space, into this corner, into this dark room in which there's no escape. Why then does a lot of society expect us to man up, right? They expect us not to break down in such a manner. We are the providers, and providers don't break down. So what we should be doing is manning up. And perhaps, is there an argument to suggest that men now are too soft? Is it that we've lost the value of men, and we're too soft? We expect people to be caring about our mental health across these spectrums?
I mean, I think there's some degree of role confusion. So I agree that the definition of what a man should be has changed, is changing. And I don't know, again, that the society has kind of kept pace with those changes in terms of how men are being nurtured and brought up. And I think in the Caribbean we have some particular problems, and going back to Bronfenbrenner, I think mothers, in terms of how they would bring up their boys, I think would be a factor. The likelihood or the sense that men are more likely to succumb to the temptation of more risk-taking activities, and the absence of supervision would mean that they're more likely to engage in those, I think is another factor. But also it's that, and again, I don't want this to come across as a critique of feminism or the emergence of women to stand equally with men. But I think, you know, again, it was probably in the late 90s when the whole concept of independent women came up, and the idea that a man wasn't really needed at whatever level. And I think the sense even that the idea of a house husband, now again, fundamentally there's nothing wrong with any of those things, but if you're brought up in a way that is not aligned with those concepts, it becomes something difficult to reconcile. And therefore, when things go wrong, or when there's emotional pain, when there's extreme stress, when there's belittling and being made to feel less than who or what you should be, then the likelihood of some kind of breakdown becomes greater.
What are some of the things, because we're speaking about breakdowns and having breakdowns, for the mothers at home who are listening, by no way are we, or am I thinking that Prof is blaming you for the mental breakdowns that your child may have later in life, but for those at home, for those mothers at home looking at this program, or maybe fathers at home looking at this program, what are some of the things that maybe they should consider not doing in terms of parenting a male child that can contribute? And I'll give you an example. When I was growing up, you weren't allowed to be afraid of cockroaches and taking rats and dead rats and those dead things out of the house, because you had to man up and do it.
Yes.
The girls could be afraid of it. Your mother could be afraid of it. But you're a man, so
yes,
or aspiring man. So you can't be afraid of it, and so you must man up. So what are some of the things, aside from that, what are some of the things in Trinidad or within Caribbean context?
Well, again, I think it is, I mean, I think you're striking at the heart of it there. I think it's the definition of what a boy and a man should be. Before I answer that, we also live in a time where gender roles and the issues of sexuality, all those things are also changing and changing quite rapidly. Yeah. So I think in terms of parenting, the issue is to allow...
Concepts of non-binary and...
Correct. To allow the boy to express himself and to encourage him to be emotionally open and to be able to be vulnerable. Because I think that the overarching message is usually, you know, as you said, not to be vulnerable, to always be strong, to always man up in a way that will not betray any sense of a loss or a lack of masculinity. But I think that definition is now outdated, and being self-aware is something that, again, men struggle with, because sometimes facing themselves and facing their insecurities, facing the challenges that they have to battle with in terms of emerging as a man, do cause them to be vulnerable, and they just don't know how to manage that vulnerability.
Which actually was going to be my next question. As a child, we often tell our children, our male children, don't open up, don't be vulnerable, stuff it inside. But then you become an adult and you enter into a relationship, traditional relationship setting. And the complaint, as you women out there may be able to testify to, is that you don't open up enough. You're closed off. You're like a wall emotionally. You know what I mean? I have couples coming to me all the time who complain about that. He don't communicate. You have a problem and he shut down, right? But for your entire life, you have been taught to develop the skill of not opening up and and shutting down and keeping everything bottled. And then you enter into another phase of life where you're expected to develop the skill out of nowhere. Yeah. How do men treat with that?
Well, again, I think the idea of self-awareness and the willingness to do what it takes to become more capable of opening up in those ways. And in the context of a relationship, however, sometimes the messages are mixed. And when you do open up, what you're faced with causes you to want to close down again. So I think it really requires that both men and women engage in that process. So to create safe spaces, I think one of the things that has happened is that in times past, a safe space for a man would be, liming with his friends, on a football ground or in a bar or things like that. Of course, in the bar, there's a risk of over drinking and creating other problems. But because of how life has changed, the online world, the lack of physical activity, and I think more generally, activity has become a lot more individual. So even when groups play video games, you're playing your part of the group by yourself. So that ability to find outlets to discuss things that might be bothering you is much less than it was. And I think that in a relationship, the need to be able to do that becomes much more necessary. But again, the space has to be created to allow them to feel comfortable to do that.
But how dangerous to men's mental health, men's well-being, mental well-being, can emasculation be? Because, one of the things we have in Trinbago is that we have some fiery ladies, and the ladies are quick-witted. We have very intelligent, very fiery ladies who know what to say, how to get you. You know what I mean? The argument might be about wares, for example, washing of the wares, and then your sexual performance comes into play, right? You got to stab about your sexual performance. Where did that come from? We're talking about washing wares. So, how dangerous to men's mental health and mental health?
And again, I think it's that measure, because I think the metrics have changed or are changing, and that macho exterior, take no prisoners, be as strong and as hard as you can, no longer holds as much purchase. But at the same time, I think the pendulum sometimes swings to find the other direction, and as you say, it creates emasculation, which again contributes to that role confusion that I referred to earlier, and leaves men not being sure how they should be, and when they should be strong, and when they should be vulnerable, when they should be expressive, when they should be more contained. So it really, I don't know that there can be a general formula. I think it really depends on the circumstance and the kind of relationship the person is in. But like you, I see a lot of couples where those changes create a kind of ongoing tension, and by and large, it's the men who struggle to cope with that tension.
The men come to therapy for couples counseling generally because the women bring them.
Correct.
But what I've been seeing, is that the women fall off and the men continue, which is just that's a strange dynamic, which I've continued to see husbands and boyfriends and the girlfriends and the wives are the ones who tend to now fall off of the therapy, and the continued therapy continues by the man who has now difficulty trying to manage and regulate.
And I think, and again, interestingly, I think the presence of safe spaces has continued for women, or to a greater degree than for men. And of course, women now too are doing most of the things that men did before, and it's let's say more socially acceptable. Girls' nights out, girls doing things together and kind of creating that bonding. Whereas when men do it, there's always a tinge of displeasure, if not censorship, around it.
I always questioned
how women manage to do these things, these, to me, personal, intimate things in groups. So, for example, going to the bathroom. And women would explain to me, well, it's for their own safety, but even in a safe space, they still do it. It's always this support. There's always a support network. I don't have the person to hold your purse, you know what I mean? But there's always this support network that women can tend to kind of have to fall back on, but men not so much. If I'm in a relationship and, for example, and I cheat on my spouse has her girlfriend she can communicate with, and the support will be there. Men are dogs. Yes. If I am cheated on by I can't go and tell my friends that my wife or my spouse cheated on me. They'll laugh at me. They will say, you know, do you see the sexual performance she talk about with the ways and stuff and that kind of thing, you know? So I think that's difference in support.
And of course, evolutionarily, the whole thing of competition, or competitive advantage, I think informs some of that, where men see themselves as competition against each other, even when the benefit of that is clearly absent. But again, I think that's historically how it was, but it is changing, and perhaps men haven't changed as quickly as they should in terms of appreciating that. And it's also, I mean, got to the point now where I think the idea of a woman, just single, successful woman, just wanting to have a child and using a donor, has further underlined that. So again, the idea of value is reduced.
So we've discussed what mental health is. We've discussed that, in truth, there is an issue perhaps of some issues of mental health or concerns for mental health with men in Trinidad. We've talked about having safe spaces and safe spaces being necessary. So for those men at home, of course, you need a safe space where you can share. Your mental health is a real thing. How do they work on repairing or identifying that they may have mental health challenges and work towards rectifying that, whatever the issue might be?
Well, again, one of the very consistent findings in the research literature is that women tend to seek help far more readily and more easily and consistently than men, and not just for psychological or mental health issues across the board. If you look at outpatient clinics, I mean, predominantly it would be women, and when men come, they come with women. They very rarely come on their own. So I think for women, help seeking is seen to be more natural, whereas for men, they and again, I think it's that that need to project this strong and invulnerable
you don't need help.
exterior. I'm okay, I can handle whatever is happening. And of course, when it gets to a point where it's you can't handle it, it might be too late to do anything about it. And of course, that's reflected in the more or less global statistic that men tend to live, in terms of life expectancy, about 6 to 7 years less than women across the world. So men die younger.
Well, there's a joke about that, and they say, well, women live longer because they not men no more.
So, part of the stress. But I think that capacity to seek help, and I mentioned self-awareness before. And again, I think women are kind of naturally more inclined to be or to engage in acts of self-awareness, even when it's done in groups. Men tend to shy away from that. So I think the act of developing self-awareness, being willing to seek help, and being able to evaluate the trajectory of your life. I think, again, the assumption that your life is going in a particular direction might be flawed if you are assuming that need to be invulnerable and that need to appear to be doing well. But I think if you are able to accurately and honestly review the trajectory of your life, you should be able to recognize if you need help.
Okay, so thank you very much, Prof. This has been, well, I've been waiting for you to come on my show for a long time. I don't know. I feel as though this is a milestone accomplished. Like, I've hit a zenith at some point. But there were some interesting things that you mentioned, and one of the things that I just want to highlight before we close is that, at least from my observations, I have recognized with clients that women tend to speak, just generally, women tend to speak more so in terms of feelings. So they tend to identify their feelings in the issues that they discuss. And men tend to identify the issues, and then I have to help them find the feelings. Right? So they divorce their feelings from the issue and try to discuss the issue. And usually what I've recognized as well is even when we as men, and I'm including myself here now, so when we as men do use feelings, there's a small range of feelings which we access. The anger, happiness, and then just nothingness, numb. So you're either happy, angry, or numb. Yes. And so we want to encourage men to move. Let's move away from that. Let's mental health, you want to seek safe spaces, as Prof was mentioning. You want to consider self-awareness as one of the things that you mentioned, yes, and so on, right? And you want to search within and check your feelings out. Of course, if anyone at home can relate to any of these issues, or you feel as though you have some of these issues, you really want to get off your chest, maybe have a safe space. Prof, how can persons get in contact with a mental health space in Mount Hope, or how can they make contact?
Well, in Mount Hope we have a stress relief center, which is where the service primarily is provided by psychologists. I could send the number to you, the numbers, right. But if you call the operator in Mount Hope, they'd be able to give you the contact numbers. We have, of course, emergency services as well. And I think most of the public mental health services now have psychological support as part of the delivery. There's also Lifeline, who continue to provide human service for people in distress. So again, I think once you reach out, there is a service that can cater to your need.
All right. So you all heard it from the pinnacle of one of the places where the pinnacle of psychology in Trinidad and Tobago. Men, there are some safe spaces for you. As a matter of fact, if you don't feel very safe reaching out to those, you can also make contact with me. Reach out on social media. I can give you the further information and contact details. I am hoping that we'll be able to put up a graphic. We'll be starting a free safe space for men to come and discuss men's issues. It won't be counseling per se, but just a free space for men to come and share everyday issues that you're having with, so that we could continue to keep your mental health in check. Thank you all for joining me today. Remember, same time, same place, right here on WESN. Till next week, Thursday, stay psyched.
WESN.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Coming soon to WESN.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond
wanna
to me.
respond
Respond to
to
me
you?
how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, so here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren. Coming soon to WESN.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Young at heart, purpose-driven, patriot even. When you like to party, but are still passionate about discussing important issues, the only place where your needs will be met is WESN Content Capital.
In Italy, there was a similar tone. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, the head of a party with neo-fascist roots, was thinking big.
Our objective is clear. We want to do in Brussels what we did in Rome a year and a half ago. To build a right-wing government in Europe too.
Both represent a marked shift seen across many parts of Europe in recent years with the rise of far-right parties. This map shows the evolution of national right-wing populist parties in European countries since 2010. By 2023, almost all of them had far-right parties in their parliaments in some form. In Italy and Hungary, they are in power, and in Slovakia and Finland, they hold ministries. In the Netherlands, the leader of the Party for Freedom reached an agreement in May to form part of a right-wing coalition government 6 months after his legislative victory. In Portugal, the leader of the Chega party made a historic breakthrough last March, coming third behind the left and centre-right. The trend has a lot to do with the progressive normalisation of far-right parties, according to this researcher.
So these political parties that were once looked at as essentially completely outside the realm of respectable politics have become more and more common, and other political parties have started normalizing them by copying their ideas.
The more extreme right parties have established themselves in the political landscape, the more they have multiplied, suggesting there could be a shift in the balance of power in the European Parliament following the European elections.
And as India awaits for the results on Tuesday of its general election, many are trying to figure out how to keep cool. The heat waves continuing. There have been more than 100 killed, tens of thousands who've fallen ill. The capital, Delhi, facing a water crisis as a result of the current heat wave.
Amid a blisteringly hot summer, residents of New Delhi queue to collect water from tankers. The water crisis and an extreme heat wave has led to moments of desperation and even scuffles among residents.
People who don't get water fights. Water is the source of life after all.
There's an issue with the water tankers. The tanker comes once in 2 to 3 days, and we face extreme difficulties for water. It's so hot outside. What can we do?
According to local media, heatwave days from March to May resulted in nearly 25,000 cases of suspected heat stroke and more than 50 deaths. On Friday, a particularly grim figure. 33 people died in one day, including multiple election officials who were on duty during the last moments of the 7-phase national elections. In April, a task force was set up to review the impact of heatwaves on the elections, and advisories were issued for workers and voters on how to protect themselves. But climate change did not emerge as a major issue during the campaign trail, despite scientists estimating that human-induced climate change has made devastating heatwaves 30 times more likely in India, and reports showing that the country experienced extreme weather on almost 90% of days last year. India is the world's third biggest greenhouse gas emitter and has set a target of becoming a net zero emitter by 2070. But for some voters, that might not be enough, as extreme weather has already led to difficult conditions for millions of people.
Time now for business. We say hello to Yuka Royer.
Hi, François.
We begin with the Kremlin downplaying reports that China's driving a very hard bargain when it comes to the new Power of Siberia 2 gas pipeline project.
Well, that's the Financial Times reporting on Sunday that talks to finalize the deal had run aground over China's demands for lower prices and quantity. Russia has denied this, insisting there's no doubt an agreement is close. The Power of Siberia 2 would carry gas from Yamal Peninsula in northern Siberia to China via Mongolia, allowing Russia to divert gas that had served the European markets prior to the war in Ukraine. But China's state energy firm has been negotiating hard to get a better deal, exposing differences in the bargaining powers between the two countries. Vedika Bahel takes a closer look.
Just last month, during a visit to Beijing, Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping reaffirmed their commitment to closer ties, including their planned gas pipeline, the Power of Siberia 2, that would diversify markets for Moscow's natural gas. But according to reports, the deal has hit a roadblock, something the Kremlin was quick to deny.
Both Russia and China, as confirmed by both leaders, are interested in continuing and deepening the energy dialogue between the two countries. The negotiations will continue because there's a political will on the part of both countries' leadership. And the coordination of commercial issues will continue, so we have no doubt that all the necessary agreements will be reached.
According to the Financial Times, talks stalled as Beijing bargained hard to pay Moscow's heavily subsidized domestic prices, as well as only committing to purchasing a fraction of the predicted annual transport capacity of 50 billion cubic meters. Whilst the first Power of Siberia, launched in 2019, delivers Yakutia-produced gas to China, its successor would connect the Yamal Peninsula gas fields to China via Mongolia, more useful for Moscow's strategy to find an alternative route for gas previously sent to European markets. The deal's approval would provide a much-needed boost for Moscow's state gas supplier Gazprom, which amidst dwindling European sales, recorded last year its highest loss in a quarter of a century.
Meanwhile, wholesale gas prices in Europe surged this Monday after an outage at a Norwegian processing plant led to a drop in supply. The benchmark front-month contract at the Dutch TTF hub rose to its highest level this year in early afternoon, but has slowed down since. The majority of the disruptions in Norway is expected to end on Tuesday. Global oil prices, meanwhile, slipped on Monday, a day after the OPEC Plus cartel said it would extend output cuts among most members well into 2025, but signalled that some members would start restoring production from October. International benchmark Brent crude and the US's West Texas Intermediate both down by around 3% currently, trading well below $80 a barrel mark.
All right, and meanwhile, there's not an emissions testing scandal, but a safety testing scandal in Japan.
Yeah, emissions too, actually. Toyota, Honda, Mazda, Suzuki and Yamaha have all admitted to cutting corners or providing false data in emissions and safety tests needed to get new models approved. Between the five companies, 38 models and hundreds of thousands of vehicles were affected over the past decade. Shipments of several models still in production have been suspended. Now, the disclosures come as a result of internal investigations ordered last year by Japan's Transport Ministry in the wake of massive test rigging by Toyota's subsidiary Daihatsu. The scandal led to weeks of factory closures and a management shake-up at Daihatsu. Toyota's chairman, meanwhile, apologised this Monday.
This kind of conduct undermines the foundation of the vehicle certification system, something car makers must never engage in. To all our clients, motor enthusiasts and stakeholders, I'd like to offer my sincere apologies. I'm very, very sorry.
Yuka, you told us about commodities earlier. How about equities? How are the markets doing?
European markets started a new trading week on a positive note with all three main major indices in positive territory and Frankfurt DAX gaining more than 1% at the close. In London, pharmaceutical firm GSK plunged nearly 10% though after a US court ruled that it must face trial over whether the now withdrawn heartburn treatment Zantac causes cancer. And we're talking about tens of thousands of lawsuits in the United States.
Still to come. Many thanks for that, Yuka Royer. More business news on the way later. It's time now for sports. We say hello to James Fazina.
Hi, François.
And we already know that Kylian Mbappe is going to buy Gareth Bale's old mansion in Madrid. So this isn't much of a surprise, but we're going to get the official announcement that he's joining Real.
Yeah, has it been months or has it been seasons that we've been expecting this to come? Because the talk has been for absolutely ages. But finally, it's supposed to be coming tonight. The football's worst-kept secret, which really has been for the last many months. Kylian Mbappe, then his words to the French president are surely the last before this announcement to come. Take a look at this going on earlier today. Plenty of media reports over the weekend that Real Madrid will be announcing Kylian Mbappe's signing this week. But here it is France's president, who's been following the young player's intentions for quite a while, asks him then when that's going to happen. Kylian Mbappe jokingly saying that it will happen tonight, this signing to come, with nothing, though, made quite official just yet, but it's been on the table, of course, for absolutely ages. So the Spanish side will be taking him on to come very, very soon. And that's only the start, of course, of what will be many topics of conversation to come as the French champion is to head over to Spain. Well, in the light of this, Thierry Henry has left out Kylian Mbappe from his preliminary squad for the Summer Olympics. Olympic Games. The former world champion turned manager says that he still has hope that the younger champion will be able to play for France. A lot of uncertainties, though, in the air, considering that Real Madrid's point of view on that matter is very negative. The club has the power over whether they want to release Mbappe or not for the Olympics, and very clearly they do not want to be doing that. But Henri, they're still hoping that that might change. Warren Zaire-Emery, Brady Barcola and Alexandre Lacazette, as well as Michael Olise, are some of those who are being called up as part of that squad, then the preliminary squad announced by Thierry Henry. Meanwhile, in the Premier League, Chelsea have appointed Enzo Maresca to replace Mauricio Pochettino after the Argentinian. He was given the boot after just a season in charge. A tough one, though, for Leicester. They lose the man who's brought them back all the way to the top of the Championship as they're set to return to the Premier League. After just a season away, Chelsea say they've signed a 5-year contract with him following the club's 6th place finish, which clearly wasn't enough for them last season. Let's move over to the latest in tennis at Roland Garros. Francesco Cerundolo has made it 1 set each against Novak Djokovic. That game going on at the moment on the central court. Meanwhile, Alex de Minaur has ousted Daniel Medvedev in 4 sets. A massive win from the Australian. He came down from a set down to power back and reach the quarterfinals then in the French Open. Take a listen to what he had to say just after the game.
The toughest thing is dealing with my team, because obviously they've got bragging rights, and they give me a lot of slack for me complaining all these years of my level on the clays. But now it looks like it's one of my best slam results. So it looks like I've converted myself into a clay specialist.
Meanwhile, on the women's side, Arina Sabalenka continues to power her way through to the second week. She's yet to drop a set after another 2-set win, this time ousting Emma Navarro 6-2, 6-3. Finally, some sun, as you can see there, at the French Open, a big change. Meanwhile, world number 4, Elena Rybakina, has managed to get past Elina Svitolina 6-4, 6-3 to set up a quarterfinal against Jasmine Paolini next. This despite not being in the best of shapes. Here she is.
I was struggling with sleep, some health issues. I think still in the past few weeks I lost a little bit physics, lost a bit of weight, but more or less I'm confident and feeling great and happy that I was managing to finish the matches also in 2 sets.
Finals to be beginning tomorrow. Now, it's the end of a partnership between Esteban Ocon and Formula One's Alpine team. The Frenchman will be leaving the former Renault side when his contract expires at the end of the season. It's been a troubled one so far for him, of course, with just a point picked up and an unwelcome crash with his teammate Pierre Gasly. That was in Monaco last weekend. For the positives, though, he has had that win at the Hungarian Grand Prix in his first year with the team. Alpine say they will be announcing their drivers for next season in due course, but quite a few changes of seats there to come in Formula One next season. And finally, stage 2 in the Critérium du Dauphiné, the warm-up event for the Tour de France. Magnus Cort Nielsen took a summit victory at the Col de la Loge in a summit sprint finish once again, as Bruno Amiral was caught up in the last 150 metres. Nielsen also taking the general lead from fellow Dane Mads Pedersen, who'd won yesterday's opening stage with not quite so much fog as today, but he has now a 4-second lead over Primož Roglic as the riders then, of course, make its way across the mountains from the Massif Central. They'll be heading to the Alps later on after this. François.
The tour can't be far if the Critérium du Dauphiné is on. Many thanks, James Vezina, who we'll have more sports news coming up for you at the top of the hour. And then we'll have more news, plus the France 24 debate. How far can the far right go in Europe? The continent votes this week to pick a new EU parliament, which could alter the traditional balance of power between centre-right and centre-left. Your thoughts on the hashtag F24debate.
Trust is our most precious asset. Every day, around the world, France 24, RFI and Monte Carlo Doualier join forces to bring you free, independent, verified, balanced information that fights manipulation, and in 21 languages. France Média Monde has been awarded the Journalism Trust Initiative Standard, which guarantees the professionalism and reliability of our international news media with a score of 100%. Trust is not automatic. It must be earned and cultivated. Thank you for your trust.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.
Special event.
6 juin 1944. La plus étonnante concentration militaire de tous les temps donnait l'assaut à la forteresse allemande.
Quand il y a eu des bombes qui sont tombées pas très loin, là, tout a tremblé.
Mon souvenir d'enfant de 8 ans, c'est que j'étais complètement terrorisée par ça, ce qui se passait.
Dad wore this kilt on D-Day and try not to get it wet.
Mais les groupes français, il y en avait pas énormément, mais il y en avait. Et ils étaient à la pointe du combat.
My wish is that we commemorate all together the freedom.
From the Normandy beaches to the United Kingdom and the United States, our teams will bring you full coverage of this historic event, the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings. Full coverage from June 5th to 7th on France 24 and France24.com. Special event with weekly programs and special guests.
C'est la fête, le sport, et il faut que ça reste comme ça.
The opening of the Olympic Games is getting closer.
C'est bientôt, soyez prêts.
Destination Paris with France 24.
Welcome back. You're watching France 24. Coming up, Israel's government confirms it's ready for a truce deal, insisting nonetheless that the plan unveiled by Joe Biden is a partial one. The U.S. president to reportedly speak with the leader of mediators Qatar as part of efforts to seal this deal. The U.S. and Brazilian presidents among those offering congratulations to Mexico's first ever woman president-elect, Claudia Sheinbaum, on course for a landslide win, bigger than her outgoing mentor, Andrés Manuel López Obrador. Farmers blocked the border between Spain and France ahead of European elections. They say they want to press cost of living demands. The biggest farm unions say the protests come too close to polling day. They're not taking part. After the news, the France 24 debate. How far could the far right go? Europeans pick a parliament this week in elections that could alter the balance of power in Brussels and in Strasbourg. How will the vote impact support for Ukraine, the green transition, regulation of tech? Our panel features candidates in this week's race. Your reactions on the hashtag F24Debate.
WESN.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sira Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Gang attack in Port of Spain leaves 4 dead and 4 injured. Lawyer for arrested Canadian YouTuber claims their lives are in danger. Opposition MP demands details of legal advice provided to Finance Minister in order to general report imbroglio. West Indies in winning start to T20 World Cup campaign. Mexico elects its first female president. Now for the details. 4 persons were killed and 4 others injured following a shooting rampage by gunmen in Port of Spain last evening. The brazen attack started in Gonzales, Belmont, where 3 persons were shot dead at around 7:55 p.m. It continued on the compound of the Port of Spain General Hospital, where one of the injured persons succumbed when the gunman riddled him with more bullets while he was being carted into the accident and emergency department. The gunmen were dressed in tactical kits resembling those worn by members of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. 3 of the deceased persons were identified as Jonathan Arjun, Jaden Reyes, and Kevin King, also known as Kevin Grimes. Police Commissioner Earl Hayward Christopher and National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines visited the scene at the Port of Spain General Hospital, where a heavy police presence was posted following the gun attack, which left many hospital staff shaken. Attorney at law Kristen G. Williams is seeking an urgent audience with President Christine Kangaloo, claiming his life and that of his client Christopher Hughes are under threat. Mr. Williams says police visited his offices after he accepted the case to represent Canadian YouTube vlogger Hughes, popularly known as Chris Must List. He claims his client was not afforded due process